Welcome in, everybody, to week number 11, the second round of the IHSAA sectional play. My name is Jeff Mahoney with Summit City Sports, and as always, we have Casey O'Boyle with Northeast Indiana Game Night, and Casey's got a mascot with him. Casey, who is on the screen right now?
This is my daughter's hairless cat, Steve. He was on a week 4 cover of Game Night this year. I think you might remember on the Bald is Beautiful issue of Game Night. And he comes home sometimes on weekends with my daughter, who's down at Marian University. And he's quite a lover. He just had a swig of my coffee. He's got claws still, so he's a bit much. But he's going to be here just for the beginning of the show, and then I'll probably kick him out.
All right, well, it looks like he's getting comfortable over there. So, but Casey, let's just jump right into it. We got a lot of games on the slate this week, and we are going to start off with Class 6A sectional number 3, Homestead at 6-3, taking on Carroll. The Chargers, you have at the number 1 spot of your power poll. We have them there as well. A lot of the local publications have Carroll as number 1. I mean, their defense has been awesome. A lot of guys getting recognition on the All-SAC team, including Jeff Becker, the senior quarterback that's going to South Dakota State. But in this one, you got Carroll by 10. So that advantage for the Chargers has actually lengthened here. Now, Homestead, ever since suffering that loss against Carroll earlier this year, they've rattled off 2 straight wins against Wayne and Southside and a bye. So that's 3 good weeks to get ready for this game. And we all know that Homestead has a great coaching staff. So do the Chargers. But what made you give Carroll the advantage by 10 points when they won by 7 the first time around?
Just an extra field goal. I mean, remember, Jeff, in that game, the Chargers jumped out early. I believe they were up either 14-3 or 14-0 early in that game. And then they kind of shut things down a little bit. There it is, 14-zip. And I remember as those scores were coming in, I was thinking, wow, Carroll might run away with this. I actually had Carroll by 7 points. It ended up being a 7-point decision. It was a little bit surprising to me. So I think Carroll might have throttled down a little bit in that game in terms of offensive play calling and some things there, and saved a few things for this week's matchup. And then, of course, I think, looking at Homestead, you got to figure their last couple games of the season, they spent time working almost exclusively on the rematch. So it's going to be a very, very good game. I think a Sebastian Lopez field goal somewhere in the mix is the difference between 1 and 2 scores. And so I'm looking at something like in the neighborhood of 24-17, 27-17, something like that.
Casey, Homestead has certainly had their fair share of injuries throughout the course of the season. I know a lot of teams have to deal with it. But when you're talking about the Spartans, you're looking for Brett Fox on the box score earlier in the season. The sophomore running back was putting up big numbers for Homestead. And Desmond Smith Jr., have you heard anything? Is he going to be 100% healthy for this game? Because he's a real difference maker for Homestead.
Yeah, Coach Chad Zolman told me last night, Jeff, that he's back in the lineup. He's back playing, but he's limited. He's not 100%. So he didn't put a number on that. If I had to guess, I'd say he's a 75 to 80%. And I think they're going to focus more with him on the offensive side of the ball. I do think they really miss him as that lockdown corner on defense. And when you've got a guy like Jamison Coverstone across from you, I think that creates some mismatch issues for the Homestead secondary. But to answer your question, yes, my understanding is he's in the lineup. He will play. I don't think we'll see him full-time both ways.
And Brett Fox, the sophomore running back, last time he recorded stats, he averaged 6.5 yards per carry with a touchdown against Northside. And that was back on September the 24th.
Yeah, Brett's had a really nice season, quiet season. They've got some nice young talent over there for sure. We've talked a little bit about the freshman quarterback, Jimmy Sullivan, kind of waiting in the wings. I know he got a lot of reps this past week, just in the event that his number is called. But right now it's the junior Peyton Slavin's position behind center. And I expect Homestead, pretty much what we saw a few weeks ago against Carroll in terms of personnel, with the exception of Des Smith being back more full-time on the offensive side of the ball.
And usually in games like this, when the teams are very evenly matched, you got to go with the quarterback with the most experience. And that's what you said in your column was Jeff Becker. He had 2 touchdown passes the first time out and ran 12 times for 51 yards. What do you expect to see from Jeff Becker this Friday?
Well, I think if Coach Andy Papagiannis, the offensive coordinator out at Carroll, has been saving Jeff Becker to a certain degree, there's no more saving him now. I mean, his numbers have been pretty quiet this year based on what he did the last 2 seasons for the Chargers. The South Dakota State recruit has had a marvelous career, and it's, for people outside of Carroll, it probably feels like he's been playing high school football since the 90s, because he just seems like he's been there forever, and he's had just a fantastic career. Jeff, I think you open up the playbook and it's about 90% Jeff Becker, including some designed runs, some rollouts, some RPOs. Give him full command of the offense in terms of feedback in between series. Come to the sideline. What are you seeing? And ride your senior leader quarterback who's had a tremendous high school career. And you go down with your best. And whether it's, in this contest against Homestead, or it's down the road against Warsaw, or in the regional or semi-state or even state, if they would be fortunate enough to make that kind of a run, because it's a really good senior class. They've got good young talent that fills in some key spots. The special teams are exceptional. And right now, Jeff Becker's your leader. And I think you pull out all the stops. You save nothing. You hold nothing back. And Jeff Becker's your guy. And including, I think we're going to see him running the ball a lot more. Luke Carmody's numbers, I would think, might be diminished a little bit in the postseason because Becker is your guy.
Well, Casey, and what a career. Ever since he stepped on the field his sophomore year, he has been such a joy to watch. He has provided so much entertainment for all of the area football fans. 5,807 passing yards with 74 touchdowns, just 26 interceptions. And those interception numbers have gone down drastically. 12 his sophomore year, 9 to just 5 this year as a senior, and 1,575 rushing yards and 20 rushing touchdowns. Casey, he was a first-team All-SAC selection, so shocker, that list came out yesterday. And Carroll had more guys on the All-SAC first team than any other squad in the SAC. So the coaches feel the same way as the local media does when it comes to Carroll is the cream of the crop here in the SAC.
Yeah, certainly, in terms of individual talent, I mean, I think all those kids are very deserving. You've got 2 offensive linemen on the first team from Carroll. Of course, Jeff Becker and Jamison Coverstone. What a dynamic duo they've been for 2 years now. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Dylan Bennett, we've talked about him all year at linebacker. Ethan Beaupre, has had a fantastic season in the secondary for the Chargers in terms of pass breakups. So, and of course, Tucker Steele, I'm glad you highlighted him. That kid just makes plays. And then their kicker, we mentioned him earlier already, Sebastian Lopez. So all those guys are deserving of first team accolades. I believe they had 2 second teamers as well. And so really a nice season for the Carroll Chargers. I'm sure they'd love to be SAC champions all to themselves, but we knew in that week 1 loss, and I felt it was an upset loss to Bishop Luers, that might cost them the right to be SAC champs by themselves. And indeed it did, but they, to their credit, they put their head down and they just kept playing week after week after week. And they strung together 8 wins in a row and put themselves in a position to share the title with Luers and Snyder. So hats off to the Chargers. They've had a great year. Now they want to follow that up with some postseason success. And even though the Sectional 3, 6A, Sectional 3 is only 3 teams, they still have to, they got to win 2 games. They got to win this one against Homestead, and then they got to go get Warsaw next week and see where things go from there. So this program is trending upward, and I think Coach Doug Dinan feels really good about his team right now. They're healthy as they've been really all year. And not that they've had major problems all year with injuries, just some nicks and some scratches, but for the most part, they've been pretty healthy, had all their weapons at their disposal. And I think now it's time to go out and put them all on full display.
Yeah, and Homestead, to have a down year in Homestead standards, they only lost 3 games, and that was by a combined total of 13 points. Nate Anderson, the senior wide receiver, who is just fantastic, was named first team All-SAC. Kind of wild, Casey, that in a down year, I don't think anybody would be shocked if Homestead won this game.
No, I agree. For whatever reason, they've really matched up well against Carroll through the years, certainly between Coach Dinan and Coach Zolman. Coach Z has had the upper hand in terms of that matchup. And they always seem to play Carroll very tough. I mean, this goes back, of course, to their old rivalry days in the Northeast Hoosier Conference. And, that conference, I believe, began in the late 80s. And it was quickly established as these two schools and these communities were exploding in terms of population and enrollment, that this was going to be the key rivalry in that NHC conference. And now it's transformed over into the SAC since 2015. And for whatever reason, Homestead definitely has had the upper hand. There are some, though, that feel like the talent is a little richer and a little deeper, maybe on the Carroll side of things, on the north side of town, and they've got the regular season win. They want to back it up with a postseason win. But to your point, the coaches out at Homestead are tremendous too, and they're going to have a great game plan that they're going to put together. I'm really excited to see. I texted a friend last night and I said, I think if Peyton Slavin gets 75 rushing yards or more, Homestead wins this game. I think his ability to run and to escape pressure off the edge and keep the middle part of Carroll's defense honest is so integral tonight for Homestead's offense. I think 75 plus rushing yards for Peyton Slavin might be the recipe for a Homestead upset. Coach Bill Skelton, offensive coordinator, knows a lot more about calling offense than I do, so I'm going to defer to him. But it's going to be a fun matchup. It's certainly one that we're going to keep an eye on.
Well, Casey, we'll move on to Class 5A, Sectional 11. And obviously the winner of that Homestead Carroll game takes on a Warsaw team that's getting a lengthy break. But over here in 5A, Sectional 11, Northrop traveling to Snyder. Tyrese Brown named to the All-SAC first team. He is in consideration for the Northeast Indiana GameNight Player of the Year. He certainly finished off the regular season with a bang, had 3 touchdowns in that win against Bishop Lures. But you got Snyder by 28. Northrop, they're improving. CJ Davis made first team All-SAC. I loved seeing that as a safety. He's a very dynamic player, but this certainly seems to be Snyder's year.
Yeah, and Snyder's owned this rivalry for the better part of 3 decades. We just got done talking about Homestead having the upper hand against Carroll through the years, but nothing like what Snyder's had against Northrop. And with the whole Spuller Stadium thing that's there every year, that's always a little bit of an intriguing subplot. I'll be interested to see if Northrop comes out fighting, and if they've got a few tricks up their sleeves. Coach Jason Dorfler is a really good young coach. I think I feel, and I know I say this almost every year, but it feels like he's right on the precipice of turning the corner with this program and getting them from 3-6 to 6-3 or 5-4. I think he's really, really close. They've been a little thin in the trenches. I think that's where Snyder wears them down in this contest. But Northrop, again, playing on turf, even though it's going to be chilly and it's supposed to be rainy, if Roosevelt Norfleet Jr., the quarterback, can get the ball out of his hands quickly and they can hit some big strike plays with those dynamic receivers, including CJ Davis, and hats off to CJ for his first team all-conference selection, very deserving. they've got some weapons in the aerial game. If they can get a couple big plays, I mean, it's going to be hard for them to do, Jeff, I think, dinking and dunking all the way down the field, especially on a cold, wet night. But there are going to be big play opportunities. And if they can draw up a couple plays and hit a home run or two early, and then they can afford to hang around a little bit against that Snyder ground game. Tyrese Brown is a beast. Definitely Joe Walburn kind of enlightened me on his discussion inclusion into the player of the year conversation, because he's very deserving. I think Snyder definitely relies on him in this game, but also I think it's important for Snyder, especially if they do get an early lead, to try to put some more things on tape, show some things with their passing game, and see if they can't get Luke Hopper going again, get his numbers trending upward going into the second round of the sectionals and beyond.
You see Tyrese Brown here, 1,159 rushing yards, but that's just 7 games recorded. So they did not get the Lures game up here on Max Preps. So you tack on, I believe it was like another 190 yards. And then if he would have had that Southside game, let's say that was another 150 yards. So now you add 350 to that total, which would have made him the SAC's leading rusher.
Yeah, or certainly right there in that conversation with Lamar and Nelson. And I, knowing Coach Sherwood Haydock, he loves his stats. He prides himself on being a 50-50 guy in terms of balance. He doesn't necessarily have that this year. So Lamarian had to carry the load offensively, but great season for Tyrese Brown. I think there's a lot of football left to be played for Snyder.
And in this game, we're expecting rain all day on Friday. This is on the nice turf there, but you got to believe that run game for Snyder, boy, it is built for this weather, as we saw at Lures Field when they played in the mud.
Yeah, for sure. Again, being on turf gives Northrop a little bit of fighting chance with their passing game. But yeah, I think Snyder probably gets on top early and then coasts in the second half and shuts a bunch of guys down, anticipating a rematch against Bishop Dwenger in the sectional title tilt. So that's kind of what I would expect here, is big lead early for Snyder, and then they throttle down in the third quarter and rest some of their key guys because they want to be 100% healthy for what they believe could be a lengthy tournament trek. And there's really no reason it can't be. If you look at the other teams in Class 5A in the North, I think Snyder, the winner of Snyder Dwenger, has a great chance of going all the way to the state championship game. And I think Snyder is a little bit deeper and a little bit more well equipped on both sides of the ball to make that run. So, but it starts, with Northrop. You got to take care of business. You can't afford a hiccup, because you lose and you go home.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to show you the bracket right here. You got Northside or Northrop and Snyder right there. The winner is going to take on Zionsville, most likely, out of that bracket there on the other side. Some tough teams, but like you said, certainly winnable in a trip to Lucas Oil, which would be pretty nice. First time for Snyder since 2015, and for Dwenger 2018, if Dwenger were able to come out of that sectional.
Yeah. And I think the winner of that, again, not get too far ahead of ourselves, I think the winner of this sectional has a very, very good chance of representing the North in Class 5A. And beyond that might be a daunting task, especially if Mighty Cathedral is waiting from the southern half. But you know what? When you get there, anything can happen. But right now it's win and survive. And I think Snyder definitely, has the right recipe, an insistent ground game with a reliable running back, great offensive line, a complementary passing attack that is ever emerging, great special teams, and a defense that I think might be the most improved unit from the start of the year until now from any side of the ball for any team in the area. I mean, if you look at what happened the first couple of weeks to that Snyder defense against Northside and Carroll, they've come a long, long way. And you got to give a lot of credit to those coaches out at Snyder. So
Nick Talamontes on the All-SAC team as a kicker there for the second team, all conference. Luke Hopper, second team. Would love to have seen Quincy Maya on here, a first or second team defensive selection. He plays that rover position for Snyder, and he's all over the field making plays. But Markel Keel, Dominic Moon, those guys are great players, certainly deserving.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All those guys are deserving. You can make an argument. There's by 2 or 3 guys from about every team that either didn't make first team, that could have, didn't make second team, that could have, didn't even get nominated, that should have. And so there's always, anytime you have these postseason teams, there's always a lot of discussion. I suppose this is as good time as any, Jeff, for us to announce that we're hoping to have our a postseason show where we unveil the all game night team, which is very expansive and includes, representatives from up to 35 different teams in 4 conferences in Northeast Indiana. We'll have our player of the year, our coach of the year, our other specialty award winners. So that'll be a lot of fun. And hopefully, I know you're going to help participate in that. Hopefully Joe Walburn can lend his 2 cents on that as well, and we'll make a fun night of it.
Yeah, and I've been harping on it all year, but Keydrell Billingsley, what he's meant to that defense is they've moved him to cornerback. He's really been able to shut down the other team's opposing best wide receiver. So he's another guy that maybe I would have liked to have seen on the first and second team, but I get it. There's only so many spots, right, Casey?
Well, and again, since he's playing both ways, I always like to give, especially at a school like Snyder, where they've got great numbers and great tradition, and you get a kid that's playing both ways and contributing both ways. Maybe the numbers aren't the most spectacular. I'm with you. I like to see them get their due recognition, but it is impossible. You're never going to please everybody. There's always going to be kids left off. Even as expansive as the all game night team is, invariably every year there's somebody, and more than somebody, somebody's probably 10, 15, 20 kids that feel like, man, I deserve to be on there, before that guy or at this position. But we try to make it as legit and deep as possible, covering all the positions. I really try to, when I put together our team, and take a lot of information from people like yourself and coaches and a lot of people that I trust that watch a lot of high school football like we do, and try to field the team almost like you're recruiting, and you're going around and you can only have so many guys. I don't need 7 quarterbacks, but on a roster of 90 guys, I probably need 4, maybe I need a few extra linemen. And I really love the 2-way guys. I give great value to those guys because I can plug them in about anywhere, including special teams.
We were talking about 2-way guys and guys that were left off. Would have really liked to have seen Jalen Lattimore somewhere on that list. Maybe the statistics aren't as shiny as some of the others. They didn't play that game against Snyder, but I've seen that man play in person, and Jalen Lattimore is a difference maker.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Certainly, again, there's a laundry list of young men that were snubbed, for lack of a better word, and I would say Jalen Lattimore is one of them. I mean, but then you have the old argument, okay, if you put him on, who do you take off? That's where you come back to. And I certainly don't want to get involved in any of that because I know how difficult it is. But yeah, Jalen Lattimore has a legit beef. He's a special talent, and in some of Southside's better performances this year, he really, really stood out. So it's a tough one for sure. I'm sure Coach Lee came to the table at all SAC voting and said, these are my guys, but we got to get him on there, and he just didn't get enough votes.
Well, let's go to the other side of the sectional bracket here. North side traveling to Bishop Dwenger. Of all the teams, maybe in the postseason, you could probably say this about Warsaw next week, but what are we going to see from North side? They didn't play the final week of the regular season. That game was canceled due to quarantine, I believe. And then they have the bye. So Northside's going to travel to Bishop Dwenger, where the first time around, Dwenger just handled them and gave them fits, 39-13. Bassett had to leave that game with an injury, and he hasn't played since. They're hoping to have him back. We'll see if that happens on Friday night. Rashawn Bassett did make the All-SAC team, honorable mention. But this is going to be an intriguing one. You see Bodie Dickerson really didn't play in that first game. He's the man now. He was on the honorable mention list. And I feel like Dwanger's a totally different team with him under center or in shotgun.
I agree completely. Talking and getting back to Northside, your original query there, I don't know what to expect. To your point, Jeff, they're a bit of an enigma right now because of all the quarantine issues they've had this year, all the injuries they've had this year. I did get confirmation from Coach Ben Johnson that Brayshawn Bassett is not going to play in this game at either quarterback or defensive end. So my understanding, he's still at least a week or two away, and I know they're anxiously anticipating his return. That being said, I think they've got most of their other horses, and I think the young quarterback Donovan Williams has done a really nice job. When you go back to that regular season meeting between the Legends and the Saints, this was kind of the beginning of the slow decline for Northside this season. I mean, they took Snyder to the brink, and if it wasn't for that lengthy Talamantes field goal, they start off with that huge upset over Snyder, and for the second year in a row. And then we're maybe feeling completely different about this team, but they had all those injuries. Jordan Turner went down in that game. Rodney Woods had to fill in and play quarterback. Brayshawn Bassett, of course, you already mentioned, went down. They were just literally limping into the first middle part of their conference schedule after that Dwanger loss. And so it's hard to understand where this team is. To your point, I feel like we're either going to see a really spirited effort and the Legends are going to put all their stars on the field and go out and give Bishop Dwenger all at once, or they could just get absolutely blown off the field. So the spreads at 23, it's very precarious. I'm not real confident in that, but I think if Tay Johnson and Jordan Turner and some of these guys go out and ball out and put it all on the line, and they get 2 or 3 drives early that finish with points, they certainly could pull off a surprise here and hang around at the very least late in the game. Conversely, Bishop Dwenger is doing some really nice things. Offensively, it looks like they're finally got their personnel where they want it. Bodie Dickerson has done a tremendous job this second half of the season. I really like how Bodie, when the guys on the outside crash, the defensive ends come up field hard, he recognizes that immediately. And that's where you got to credit the tutelage, I think, of Antoine Taylor and the matrix coaching that these kids get. It's top level. And that's, I think, the biggest improvement for Bodie Dickerson is his ability to recognize when the pocket is breaking down and stepping up. And it reminds me a lot of Deuce Taylor. He was really efficient at that. Now, the one difference is Deuce sometimes could step up in the pocket and go laterally and still make a play with his arm downfield. Bodie's not there yet on his progressions. But to his credit, he knows that. He's not making mistakes. He's tucking it and running, Jeff, and many times he's getting 7, 10, 13 yards on those runs. And all that accumulates in the ground game. And you would think theoretically that should open things up for KJ Tippmann, who's been a little dinged up in recent weeks, but my understanding is he's healthy and back for this contest. Could be a big night running the ball for the senior running back KJ Tippmann for the Saints.
Yeah, how about that? 11 touchdowns here. Basically got his first official start there in that Concordia game. So, but yeah, and also the 5 touchdowns rushing, averaging 5.2 yards per carry. And as we've seen, he doesn't shy away from contact, does Bodie Dickerson.
No, he's done a really nice job. I mean, he's still such a string bean. I mean, he's sprouted up. He's always been a thin kid, but athletic. And again, this is a kid that I spent some time with coaching at St. Charles, so I know Bodie well. And he's sprouted up, and he's a legit 6'3", 6'3.5", and he's got room to fill out. But he has to your point, done a really nice job lowering his shoulder and running through tackles, certainly arm tackles, and really giving them a nice edge. My dogs are going nuts. Do you hear them?
It looks like a party, or sounds like one.
They're getting excited. You know what? They're Saints fans. I mean, they're closet homers. These dogs. They're wearing their gold helmets, running around in the family room.
Either that or the mailman's there.
No, I don't believe so. It's too early for the mailman.
Okay.
But Bodie's done a great job, and the Saints are, they're a little underhanded. It's my understanding Adam Lee might be out in this contest. He has not been the same player that he was, I think, the first half of the season. Certainly in that Snyder game, that was not the Adam Lee that I'm accustomed to watching on film for the Saints. Really a hard-hitting defensive back. He was a difference maker in the first game against Northside. He's the one that had that big hit, remember, against Jordan Turner that knocked Jordan out of the game. And if he's not playing, that could open up some throwing opportunities for the Legends, especially with Jordan Turner and Tay Johnson.
Yeah, so Bishop Dwenger gets one guy on the All-SAC first team, and that is Jack Tittman. So they got him listed as a defensive tackle, defensive end there. And then Tay Johnson, the sophomore, one of the best players in the state for his class, was named All-SAC first team as a safety. So congratulations to those guys. Vargovich, the junior defensive tackle, also making All-SAC first team. So they got 3 defensive tackles, 2 defensive ends on the first team. One of the guys here, Casey, that I have to mention because I've been talking about him all year is Gavin Groves, who his statistics are certainly worthy of first or second team. And he wasn't on the list at all.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That does look like an oversight for sure. I think Gavin's had a tremendous season. I mean, over 20 tackles for loss, I believe. Is that what you had? Yeah, right at 20 tackles for loss. And those are legit. Those are legit. I will tell you, and I won't spell out any other names, any other teams. Some teams are more conservative with their recordings than others, especially when it comes to defensive statistics. Bishop Dwenger is very, very conservative with their stats. I mean, they're not padding stats, in other words. So if a kid jumps on top of a pile, they don't just give them an assist. So those stats are very true. In many cases, I feel like they're underreported sometimes because I've watched games before and I make mental notes and then I'll see the stats come in and they'll have somebody for 1 sack, let's say. And I'll be like, no, I know for sure he had 2. And so I credit Dwenger for not just, padding the stats. Offensively, you can't do that really. You could maybe on pancake blocks and some of the lineman statistics, stock blocking for receivers in terms of grading out, but not yards, right? Yards are yards. I mean, maybe a yard or 2 here or there. Tackles, I've seen through the years some really lopsided tackle numbers. That's why we stopped running tackles in our leaders board, Jeff, because invariably there'd be certain teams or certain programs and they'd have 3 of the top 5 tacklers because of the way they record it. So it's just, there's not a lot of consistency in that area, but to Dwenger's credit, Brad Newhouse is their main statistician. Then I know they go back in and watch film and the coaches put their 2 cents in too. They don't pad stats. So those stats for Gavin are legit. And if anything, maybe even a little shorthanded, and makes you wonder why he wasn't there. There's a couple others, Adam Lee, curious that he wasn't on there, but I think his injury these last few weeks probably dampened his numbers. His numbers were down too because no one threw his way. Remember he's had a lot of interceptions the last couple of years. He had 4 pump blocks earlier this year. He's a playmaker. And then on the other side, I think Henry O'Keefe, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Henry. I mean, they have kickers and punters on this. I wish they would make a spot for return men because you'd be hard pressed to find a better punt/kick returner than Henry O'Keefe.
Yeah, talk about return men. Leo's Caden Miller got put on there as a specialist right there. Caden Miller, who, wow, he's outstanding in the punt and kickoff return. And Casey, I mean, I understand what you're saying about Dwenger's stats. I honestly think Dwenger probably does the best job of any school in our area recording stats. I mean, they really fill up the columns from QB hurries to all the above. A lot of the schools, you're getting what Huddle gives you, the Huddle stats. So you got some guy looking to crank out games there, statting it. But honestly, I got to give my hat off to Coach Garrett and his coaching staff because honestly, I look at stats every single week. I think Dwenger does the best job in the area, and that's the whole area, not just the
They
SAT.
they do, and I think Carroll does too. I wish they could all get the same program. I'm sure you agree with this too. For my purposes, it's hard because you're dealing with different programs, different stat sheets. Some of them are this long, and you can't even print them. You have to kind of go through column by column on a laptop, and they're hard to decipher quickly. And covering as many teams as we cover, I'm all about let's get stuff in and out and be quick. And but Carroll's another one that is very thorough. I mean, certainly I think Homestead. I mean, I don't want to leave anybody out. They all do a great job, and it's again a thankless task if you're the statistician or the people that are in charge of those things. So I'm very grateful to all of them for taking the time to send me stats Friday nights after games, Saturday mornings, Sunday after watching film. Like Homestead will update their defensive stats, and Coach Sean Harkness will send me a separate email like he does you and many others. Yep. That stuff's great. I mean, these guys, they put a lot of time into it like we do, and we're very grateful.
I know the kids are great.
We got to segue out of this sectional and get into the Class 4A so we can talk about our boy, Caden Miller.
Yeah, but just real quick, and I know the kids love it too when the coaches are throwing like that. Casey, here's some of the Friday night game prep, if you will. So you got a lot of sheets to go through, but I'm the same way. I don't know if you can see that too well. Maybe it's a little blurry, but I got to go together and then compile my own stats just to make sure that they're readily available. Because like you say, sometimes it's hard to thumb through about 5 pages. Oh,
yeah. And you want them to be accurate. I know I'm sure you were tempted. I was too, to kick off with the Leo Lions after last week's performance, but that's the next game on the docket. Let's get into it, Jeff.
Absolutely. So Leo last week went to Kendallville, and the first time around, it was an amazing game. East Noble drives all the way down the field. They're down by 8 points and couldn't get it done in the final seconds. This time around, it was Leo getting the ball with under 2 minutes left, and they're down by a score. The Lions come back. Casey, that final drive of the game, they came out in the spread offense. All of our jaws just dropped. So, honestly, Casey, I've been a part of football pretty much my whole life. Started playing PAL when I was in the 4th grade. Before that, I was a huge Dan Marino fan. So the first Super Bowl I ever watched was Joe Montana against Dan Marino, the Niners and the Dolphins. Gosh, what was it? I believe that was like 84. But and I thought Dan Marino was going to go to like 12 straight Super Bowls after that. Just like LeBron won, not 2, not 3, not 4. But honestly, that was the only Super Bowl he ever got to, Dan Marino. But this game right here, Casey, was by far one of the best games I've ever seen. The chess match between Luke Amstutz and Jared Souter was on display. I really enjoyed watching East Noble's offense with all that misdirection and the motion. And they made it tough on Leo. But I think I mentioned this last week. I thought it would come down to some big plays by Caden Miller, and I think that's what happened.
Well, I think you might have been borrowing one of my crystal balls with that prediction, because that was and to that point, he'd been pretty quiet, and it was remarkable to watch them go to a passing attack. They had that one run where they ran the ball right in the middle of the field and got stuffed, and the clock is just ticking. And I think you guys talked about it on the telecast, and I'm sitting in my living room like, nope, too late for that, guys. You don't have a choice. And I love to see kids step up. Jackson Barber, a kid that's worked really hard to become more than just the Harry Houdini of option offense, right? The ball fakes and the reads. He does a tremendous job with that, but he's worked really hard to make himself a pretty good passing quarterback as well. And the one time they need it, and they don't have another choice, he delivers. He threw so many good balls. Think about the catches. Caden Miller got 4 catches in the game, and they all came on that last drive. And all of them were either pressure-packed or circus catches. The one he made in traffic, I still think is the play of the year, where they're, Jackson Barber put that thing right on his hands, and there were, I think, 4 defenders by East Noble right there around the 5-yard line, and I have no idea how Caden Miller holds on to that ball. But if he doesn't, I don't think they win that game. They score on the next play on a little out pass that was almost knocked down by the East Noble defender, and Caden Miller catches the ball, and I think he tosses it to the official, and he's real casual. He just walks up the sideline like he went to the grocery store to pick up some milk for his mom. Just real casual. And the Leo sideline is going bonkers, and Caden Miller's like, no, had it the whole time. It was tremendous. I saw this piece you did on the Lions, specifically on Caden Miller. Well done. And what a fantastic finish to a fantastic game. I know Jake talked about it being just quintessentially perfectly done in terms of sportsmanship and play and coaching and the whole kit and caboodle. The officiating, everything. I totally agree. It was one for the ages. This will be one of those games that I'll archive and probably put in my top 10, and it'll be hard to knock it out because it was special.
Yeah, you just saw Rylan Crawford up there. Even the individual matchups, he was one-on-one with Rowan Zalman in that game, and that was fun to watch. So, and I thought it was great because, Caden Miller, Coach Souter, Jackson Barber there, they said, we don't have the sectional trophy right next to us. Like we haven't done anything. Why are you guys so excited?
You tried to give it to him, Jeff.
I know. Well, why is it that we get more excited than these players sometimes, But these guys are seniors. They're smart. You're going to see the out pattern there. The Caden Miller, which was a great catch.
Yep.
So
and then the catch by Rylan Crawford was a great catch too. They needed almost every one of those plays. To Joe Walburn, we had lunch earlier this week, the 3 of us. Joe said that they had about 7 or 8 things that had to happen for them, and we're watching some of them now, including that play. My goodness.
Yeah, that was definitely a phenomenal play. But so they're going to take on a DeKalb team that they beat pretty handedly early in the season. And in this one, you got Leo by 45 because it's not played in the sloppy, muddy field. This time it's going to be at home on their turf. And I guess you got to believe Leo gets this one done. And could we see another rematch with Northridge? You remember last year, Northridge could have easily won that first round sectional game.
Yeah, Leo could have lost any of their sectional games a year ago. They all 3 they could have went either way. And I think Leo is right now playing at a high level. Carson Hepner, we saw him last week. What a gutty effort. He'll miss this contest because he's still a little gimpy with an ankle, with a sore ankle. No sense playing him in this game. He needs to heal up for the stretch run. Leo's got more than enough personnel to win this game, especially on a dry track at home. You got to believe they're going to try to get that ground game going with Mason Sharon and rack up some big yards early in the first half and try to put the game on ice sometime midway through the third quarter. DeKalb wants to throw it around with Tegan Irk and the Wiley kid at receiver. They've got some nice pieces there, but it's going to be cold. It's going to be rainy. I think a big edge to Leo. They were not real thrilled playing up in that quagmire a couple of weeks ago in Waterloo. So I think Leo, puts it to DeKalb pretty quickly here in the first half of this contest, and then they can set their sights on a sectional championship next week, probably against Northridge. But I think that Ethan Crawford might be questionable for this game too. I don't have my notes right in front of me, but I know for sure Carson Hepner will probably not play, and I think that's a wise decision, especially since he's your punter. That punt block, remember last week, huge. Jeff, that could have been the play of the game. And if it wasn't for Jackson Barber and Caden Miller, it probably would have been.
So you think you see maybe somebody like Cam Zeisloff getting a few extra reps in this game here if they got so many guys down? And, I'm glad that you mentioned Carson Hepner, who's been just a stud for Leo this year. He had a touchdown. I mean, in my mind, he broke the plane there.
Yes.
And he was running on one leg.
What a play that was. I mean, that score right there was so big. I mean, there was, again, so many pivotal plays, but to see him, um, summon all the energy and toughness to basically limp into the end zone, break a couple tackles, and maintain his balance without having an elbow or a hip touchdown prior to the goal line. I think in real time, the officials were convinced there's no way he got over the goal line because it happened so fast, and it looked like in the real time. I thought he was a little short too until I saw your replays, and that was a really tough performance by Carson Hepner. That's another kid that's kind of had to accept his role. Most other teams in the Northeast 8 or other teams in the area, he'd be their star running back, and he may be option 3 or 4 on this team with guys like Mason Sharon and Caden Miller. So kudos to him for toughing it out. And when they needed a big play, he delivered. And again, just a tremendous, tremendous game.
Yeah, and let's go over here to the all NE8 team. You see DJ Allen, first team defensive end, Mason Sharon and Luke Graff. So definitely Carson Hepner could have been on there. His numbers are fantastic this year. Rowan Zalman, Mylan Graham from New Haven. I love that. Go to the second team offense and Kanan Carrico. So Hepner, just another one of those guys that probably got overlooked on the 1 and 2s.
Yeah, and that's more of a byproduct of playing on a great team with great teammates around you. Sometimes you get a little bit overshadowed, and I think that's what happened there with Carson.
Yeah, Carson obviously averaging double digits per rush. Well, let's look at the next game then in that sectional. Yeah, Columbia City at Northridge. Now I'm pulling up the Northridge stats here, and wow, they've played a lot of different quarterbacks this year. 4 different quarterbacks with over 25 passing attempts.
I mean, that's not a big deal. Bishop Dwenger did that in one series, I think, in one game this year, didn't they?
25 attempts?
No, there was that one game, though, remember, where we saw KJ come out in Wildcat, and then I think we saw the Springer, Evan Springer, the starter, and Bodie Dixon, the sub, both all get snaps, and maybe even Sam Campbell. But I'm just being facetious, of course. Northridge is a really good program. This doesn't seem to be a great Northridge team. If you look at their schedule this year, they don't have many great wins. Certainly last week's win over Northwood, I think, was a little bit of a surprise for most people. But again, Northwood was really down compared to where they've been. So Class 4A is wide open in the North. And Joe said it last week. You and I have said it all year long, too. We really felt like the winner between East Noble and Leo is got a great chance to represent the North in the state championship game. So I think Leo's built for November. We're not to November yet, so I'm giving them a huge favorite tag, if you will, because of what they do. But in this game, Columbia City and Northridge, Greg Bolt is a 6'5" Ivan Drago. I mean, he is a man, and I think they've tried to run him a little bit more this year. Ethan Severs is a really talented running back. You've got some nice weapons in the passing game. It's going to be all about Greg Bolt, though. If he can will them to some long drives, convert some third downs, some fourth downs, keep the ball away from Northridge's ground game, I think Columbia City certainly could surprise. That being said, playing up there in Middlebury, Northridge plays very well at home, and I expect them to find a way to come out victorious. But Columbia City can hang around in this game for sure. I like what I've seen again from how they played here recently, especially last week. They looked really good, and we're pulling for the Eagles as our local team, but I still think they're 3 scores underdog against Northridge.
Yeah, Greg Bolt, 402 rushing yards with 5 touchdowns, 759 passing yards with 9 touchdowns. Columbia City, another team that does a great job with their stats.
Yeah, I think Columbia City, again, it's a little surprising that Greg's numbers are that quiet. I think he missed a game or two perhaps earlier in the year. Again, like we talked about at the top of the show with Jeff Becker, this is your guy. I mean, he's basically been a 4-year starter. Greg Bolt has been there since he was a freshman, and he's a man now. He was a little boy back then. He's a man now. I think if I'm Coach Fox, that's who I'm riding. I'm saying, all right, big fella, you're going to be we're going to jump on your back and we'll go as far as you take us. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some, quarterback draws, spread formation, spread everybody out, get guys out of the box and let him just run people over at the second level. See if you can't get some 4, 5, 6 yard runs that way, shorten the game a little bit, and then take a shot downfield with Stratton Fuller or some of their other receivers that they have, and see what happens. But Northridge is really, really good tournament tested program here in the last, I'd say 12 to 15 years. They've won a lot of games, and I think playing at home, they have to be favorites.
Well, Casey, the winner of sectional 19 will take on the winner of sectional 20. We're in the semifinals. Wayne got a big win last week over Marion. They'll take on Delta, who beat Southside. The Swami says Wayne by 1 point. This is a close one.
I think it is a close one. Originally, I had Delta, and then I had a really long, interesting conversation last night with Sherwood Haydock, the head coach at Wayne. They've got some guys back. Justin Alexander, who had missed the last month or so, maybe 6 weeks, is back in the lineup. Will give them, I think, another weapon in the passing game. We talked about some of the guys they got back last week on the defensive side of the ball. Well, they're getting another one back, Jordan Donahue. Remember earlier in the year, he was making noise. And I think he's going to line up at nose guard, and he at times can be unblockable. So they got some guys back last week, and I thought they were really going to blow the doors off Marion a week ago, to be honest with you. I mean, the Marion scoring right before half, I think, gave the Giants new life, turned that into a closer game than I thought it was going to be. But Wayne, I think, looks at Delta as a very comparable team to Marion in terms of scheme, in terms of personnel. And so I think the Generals look at this game like they belong and they match up quite well. So I'm picking Wayne in an upset special. It's going to be tough going on the road, of course, but I think Sherwood Haydock has kind of really made a name for himself as a postseason coach with the 2 state championships, one at Harding and then one, of course, well, not the one state championship, the runner-up finish, of course, at Woodland a few years ago. But, he's always hung his hat on the philosophy of regular season's important, but we're about building and we're about championships in the postseason. And I think he's got some of these kids' attention now, and they're starting to believe a little bit more. Aiden Meek at quarterback. Back at quarterback, he will be the guy again tonight. He's a senior. He had a big pass play last week to Sean Collins that kind of opened things up. And I think, again, Lamarian Nelson, the SAC rushing leader, they're going to rely heavily on him. He's, knock on wood, has not fumbled the ball much this year. Neither has Collins. They've really taken care of the ball. They've cut down on their miscues, their penalties. I think Wayne is primed for a huge upset win down at Delta. Again, it's contingent on their ability to run the ball, take care of the ball, and get just enough plays on the defensive side to keep Delta from, putting up, big points, especially before halftime.
Yeah, and Aiden Meek back as the starting quarterback, he does so much for that team. But what prompted that, Casey?
I think a lot of different variables. They've got a young kid that's waiting in the wings. I think Sherwood felt like he wasn't quite ready to put him out there, the Cooper kid. So I think we'll probably see him in a quarterback battle next year for the starting spot. But I just think it was more of a gut instinct on Sherwood's part, thinking, okay, this is a guy that, again, Aiden Meek started quite a few games as a sophomore, played all of last year, was their guy behind center. Sure. I think he just got to a point where I need to ride my senior. And I think it was the right call. I think Aiden, his passing has improved in recent weeks. Like I said, that ball he threw last week to Sean Collins was a beauty. Yeah. And they may need 1 or 2 of those kind of plays in this game. And getting Alexander back at receiver gives them one more weapon out wide when they're not in that double tight look to give the folks down at Delta something to think about.
Wow, coach's intuition there. And Coach Haydock certainly has a number of years of experience to go off of when it comes to that intuition.
No doubt about it. I think Coach Haydock does a great job. I'm sure there's folks out at Wayne that sometimes want more or expect more, but it's been a long time, I think, since Wayne has won a sectional championship. I don't know if you remember the last time, Jeff. Maybe you can call that up on John Harrell's site. I was trying to rack my brain last night, and I meant to look it up. Let's see if we can go to Wayne.
It was during the Powers run there.
Did they win one there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
They're one of the highest scoring teams in the state of Indiana. When was it Keon Powers and Deion Powers? Both of
Keon
them.
and Deion Powers, yeah, and Kai Black, of course. All those guys went up to Davenport University and played. I didn't know if maybe they got upset. Okay, there it is. Is this sectionals here?
Wow, 1996.
Okay,
you are right.
I was thinking that they might have been upset either by Dwinger or somebody. Yeah, after having that, I think that was Scott Shaw's year, and they were. I think they might have won the SAC or at least shared the conference title. Again, all this stuff starts to run together in my mind. But I was thinking it'd been a long, long time since. Yeah, go back to right before Derek Moore. Scott Shaw, there it is, 9-2.
Wow.
Oh, they had Snyder. It was 5A. They were in 5A, and Snyder got them after they beat Snyder a couple weeks earlier. Okay, that does sound right. And I'm sure we probably all picked Wayne to win that game because that was a dynamic team for sure. So it's been a long time. Think of that. That's pre-game night since they've won a sectional title, according to what you just looked up there. 1996. I don't think most people would get that trivia question.
No, but you know what? That was a year after my senior year, and they had the DeArmond brothers there. I think it was Nate DeArmond,
Nate and Seth.
Yeah, and Nate went on to play at IU, and they had Worley and who was a linebacker that went to
Jared Worley.
Quavis Tate, the running back.
Yep. Darnell Levette was during that era too. What a tremendous quarterback and defensive back he was. And of course, Cornelius Bowick at defensive end. I remember those teams even before those years before. And that win, you talk about great games, the comeback win up at Hobart that I saw with my own eyeballs in person, where Wayne was down, I believe 21-0 and came back to win that game. That to me might be better than what you guys witnessed last week. It was a phenomenal game, postseason game. The Bricky Bowl, to that point, I feel like Hobart had never lost a home game to that point in the playoffs. I mean, it was historical. And of course, Mark Newland was the coach back then at Wayne, and that's when Wayne football was pretty darn good. I think they might have had maybe 2 appearances in a 5 or 6 year stretch in the state championship game. So they've got some history there. I just can't believe it's been that long since they've hoisted a sectional title trophy. If there's a guy that can do it, though, it's Sherwood Haydock. He can get this program turned around. I'd love to see Sherwood coach at least another 3, 4, 5 years and keep building something and have another run under his belt. I think that would be really great for Fort Wayne football.
Yeah, well, Wayne being at 3-7, honestly, it's a pretty exciting 3-7 because every single week we're looking to see what Lamarion Nelson did, and every single week he answered the call. First team All-SAC running back.
No doubt about it. Lamarion Nelson's had a great year. Really nice, unassuming kid. Does his job. He's not about all the glory, but he's just a workhorse. And I think the Generals they look at themselves. I think they feel like they're 5-5. I think they feel like they let a couple games slip away. And so I don't think they're going into this game thinking, well, we can't beat Delta. I think they're going to go down there fully expecting to win, not just because the Swami picked them by 1, but because they believe it. I think they've looked at enough film and they know that they can take the Eagles down.
Yeah, if they had a battle right now of the 3 win teams in the state of Indiana, I think Wayne would end up winning that battle. So Nehemiah Young, first team defensive end, Avant Rogers, who had double-digit tackles last week. Casey, let's go ahead and move on here to the game that I will be doing, Mississinewa at New Haven. I look at Mississinewa, and they kind of remind me of Leo. Earlier this year, when Mason Sharon was our player of the week, I said, oh my, who could be averaging more yards per carry than Mason Sharon? And it was the Mississinawa running back, Carson Campbell.
Yep.
So what a year that they have had. They can run the rock, man. And they got some big guys on offense and defense. Now it's really interesting, Casey, because New Haven played Eastbrook in week number 2 and lost, I believe it was 42-7. The next week, Mississinawa played Eastbrook and lost, I think it was like 42-6, or you can reverse those.
Yep.
Almost identical scores, back-to-back losses to 2A Eastbrook. I think this could be a good game.
No doubt. And I think both teams have improved tremendously, especially New Haven. I mean, think about where they've come from the middle part of the season, some of the wins they've put together. First-year coach Kyle Brewer's done a great job. They've got a lot of seniors, as does Mississinawa. So this is going to be a fun one. I'm so thankful that you guys are covering it, because this is a game that definitely I will have on one of my many screens tomorrow night. And I think really intriguing matchup between, Mississinawa's, option attack, just pounding the ball between the tackles. And of course, New Haven with Jakar Williams, some of those big play athletes. Can they run the ball consistently? Can they avoid turnovers? Those will be the question marks, penalties. But, Mylan Graham has had a great, season, quiet season. Quantry Sanders, the senior, another playmaker for Leo. And I just think this is a great matchup, and I can't wait to watch.
Yeah, what Jakar Williams has done the last 2 weeks, over 600 yards passing, and also Kamari Clompton and Mylan Graham, both of them with over 200 yards passing, multiple touchdowns. Granted, that's against Huntington North, both of those games. But they've really developed their passing game here towards the end of the season. But Casey, with this, we calling for rain on Friday night. And then I look back and I'm thinking, well, early in the season, New Haven had a lot of those drops. Is it going to be hard for this passing game to get going?
Yeah, it is. And I think and we tried to take into consideration with our spreads that very fact that, sometimes forecasts change, but as of today, Thursday, it's supposed to be chilly, which is not surprising on the weekend of Halloween, but also rainy. And if it's a steady rain or a heavy rain, you've got to favor the teams that want to run the ball, I think, because they can keep away, especially on turf. They can just try to keep things between the tackles, play 4-down territory up and down the field, because now you run the risk of, errant snaps or a punter, the ball slipping through the hands of a punter. All those things are in play now because of the weather. And I think that's why we went with Mississinawa. But I do agree. I think it's going to be a close contest.
Casey, here's your Mason Sharon and Carson Hepner with Campbell and Nelson. The only thing is they don't have an Ethan Crawford and a Caden Miller and all those other guys. That's why they got these gaudy touchdown numbers. But this should be a fun game. And I'm really excited to get back out there and see Jakar Williams in his final year. If this comes to a battle of running the ball, you got to remember Mylan Graham here can run with the best of them. He's a wide receiver, but he also played Wildcat earlier this year. He was their wide receiver when Jakar was down in that Eastbrook game. And then the game after, that was the win. Oh, shoot. Was that against DeKalb?
It was against DeKalb. Yep.
Yeah, against DeKalb. So, and Quantry Sanders has been fantastic for him, too. So,
and Clopton. Yeah, all three of those guys. And you know what I like is I think we might see them tonight, Jeff, or tomorrow night on some jet sweeps, trying to get them to the edge, and some little shuffle passes where they're coming from the perimeter in motion. And it's just a simple toss forward. So if it does get dropped, or if it is slippery, it's just an incomplete pass and not a fumble. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw a little bit more of that from them offensively. And then I think what you were alluding to at the beginning here, I think Jakar Williams needs to be a focal point running to the ball. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw designed quarterback sweeps and blasts where you get a couple guys out front trying to get a hat on the Mississinawa defenders, and you use that big, strong athlete, Jakar Williams, as a bruising ball carrier and see if you can't, almost like I suggested that Columbia City does with Greg Bolt, and you just pound away in the cold rain, and you let him just impose his will on that Mississinawa defense and wear them down so that maybe you can win the game in the fourth quarter with your athletes.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, but you also have to think about conserving the big man's energy too. Jakar, 6'4", 240, 250 maybe. I mean, he's a big guy. Casey, the defensive player of the year, the sideline Swami's defensive player of the year has to be Isaac Carswell's. It just has to be 109 tackles, 13 tackles for a loss, 2 sacks. What's the Swami think?
Well, he's Isaac Carswell. That was one of those kids that made our preseason top 40 team. And I think there were, if I remember correctly, a few folks on social media that questioned it. And I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. This kid can play. And he's had a tremendous season, has Carswell, really been the leader of that defense that at times has looked somewhat porous. Let's be honest. They've given up big chunks of yardage in certain matchups, but he's been the one consistent performer on that side of the ball all year long. I think Jarrell Jackson, number 6, is another guy in the defensive trenches that needs to have a big game in this contest for New Haven. He's kind of a converted running back that I think a couple of years ago we felt like this was going to be Jerome Bettis. I even nicknamed him the Bus. I thought he was, number 6, going to be the Jerome Bettis of New Haven football. They kind of found a spot for him now on the defensive side, and I think he needs a big game against Mississinawa. I expect him to try to shoot some gaps, see if he can't use his quickness and get in the backfield. Because what you want to do against Mississinawa is get them out of, off schedule, right? Down in distance. You want 2nd and 13, that kind of stuff. If they're on schedule, 2nd and 7, 2nd and 6, 3rd and 3, they'll just keep the ball, and they'll seize 2 or 3 possessions from New Haven, and then that just puts all the more pressure on New Haven to have to score when they get the ball. If Mississinawa is able to have 7, 8, 9-minute drives, and that's what they want to do in this one.
Casey, and Jarrell Jackson, second on the team with 7 tackles for a loss. I'll tell you what, when you look at projected starting lineups going from week 3 to week 11, I don't know if anybody's made as many changes as New Haven. There's new guys all over the place.
There is, and again, credit the coaching staff. I mean, that's a tough thing to do. I mean, there's something to be said for knowing your personnel and then riding with them. But by the same token, when things aren't quite going your way, the season's over like that. And it's these coaches have to make tough decisions, and they evaluate film. They're working with these kids at practice. And I think we all felt going into the season, New Haven has some nice parts. I mean, they've got some athletes, they've got some size, they've got a returning quarterback, they've got speed. How do you put it all together? Coach Kyle Boer, I think, has done a really good job here the second half of the season to make them a really dangerous team. And I'm, of course, a homer. I don't mind admitting that. I want New Haven to beat Mississinawa. I certainly think they can. So hopefully they go out and get the job done. But going to be a great matchup. They've got to try to find a way to get Mississinawa off schedule when are they the Indians, right? Mississinawa?
Yes,
do you remember? Okay. I don't want to be politically incorrect and find out that they've changed their name to the Sharks or the Lions or something. I think they are.
I don't think they're the drafts yet.
With the name like Mississinawa, they should be. What a great, heritage name, right? That being said, I think New Haven needs to get them off schedule, take some chances, and shoot some gaps, get some guys off the edge, see if you can't get them uncomfortable in terms of down and distance. And then conversely, I expect, because of it's being wet and cold, a big night for Jakar Williams and ride his sturdy shoulders. You said you can't wear him down. Well, you know what? It's this and then basketball season.
Yep.
Right? Yep. I think you ride his shoulders and hope that your athletes make a big play or two in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest number in this game is going to be turnovers, and New Haven cannot turn the ball over. We're moving on to Class 3A, Sectional 27, Concordia at Norwell. And the Swami has Norwell by 24 points. So an NE8 team putting it to an SAC team. Boy, you got to love what Concordia was able to do last week. That was a fun game to see. Eli Maddox, 320 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. So Concordia gets their first win of the season since week number 1. You got to love that stuff. And that's what the SAC is when it comes to teams like Bishop Luers. Well, not Bishop Luers anymore. Now they dominate through conference. But, Bishop Luers, Concordia, throughout the years, even a Southside and Wayne, now that they're dropped a class, these teams can get beat up a little bit in the regular season. And then you get into the postseason, and they're the ones doing the beating up.
Yeah, I was so happy for Coach Eschbach and the cadets. We brought them a stack of pizzas from B. Antonio's the other night as our team of the week, and they were really, really grateful. Kids were all smiles. It's been a long, long season. I mean, that week 1 opening win against Southside seems like it was 2 or 3 years ago. And so for the cadets to muster enough pride and energy to come out last week and put forth a really, really spirited effort against Northwestern, granted a Northwestern team that came in winless, but really happy for those kids. Maddox, the junior quarterback, had great numbers, and we thought he might. Jace Parnan, Robert Johnson, Dontrell Johnson have been staples all year long. The James Rusher is healthy and back in the mix on both sides of the ball. He's arguably their best player. So this is a capable team, and 24 points is a lot of points, but you have to look at Norwell, Jeff, and look at their scores and what they're doing. This is a team, I don't know how they do it. Second year in a row, Coach Josh Gerber is under the radar. They beat East Noble 2 weeks in a row. You've seen East Noble live now a couple times. That's a really talented football team. So Josh Gerber and his coaches are doing something right. And to be 9-1 in that conference and to rack up 7 wins in a row, really, really impressive for the Knights, because of Leo and all the headlines they get, and because of I think East Noble, with the Division I players on both those rosters. Norwell literally flies under the radar in the Northeast 8. And the 24 points felt kind of funny putting down, I'll be honest with you, as a spread. But I wouldn't be surprised if they cover that, because this is a really, really talented team. Luke Graft, deservedly all conference. We've talked a lot about Brody Bolin. I mean, he's starting to get some recruiting noise. Bo Morgan, I think, is still out, the senior, or maybe he's a part-timer. He's not quite 100% yet. Other than that, most of these kids, I'll be honest, are juniors. This is a potentially scary team next year, right? But I think they also look at this as like, forget next year. Let's make our run this year. And 3A, again, in the northern half of the state, I think is fairly wide open. And I think there's no reason the Knights can't make a lengthy run. And because of Concordia's, penchant to throw the football, and we've already talked a lot about the rain and the cold conditions, I think this is a matchup suited for Norwell, even though it is going to be played on artificial surface, which will, I think, help Concordia. I think Norwell gets the job done because of that ground game and just their overall toughness on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and I apologize. I guess finding the combined Luke Graff stats are a little bit harder than I thought it might be. But what an outstanding year the junior running backs having, like you said, a special junior class there. And you got Norwell winning it big.
Yeah, I like what Coach Gerber's team has done. I mean, 9-1 is 9-1, and they don't match up real well against Leo. I mean, a lot of teams can say that Leo's really, really good, especially in the trenches. I mean, with the progression, I think of Colin Butler on the offensive line and Sam too, and is it Dallas Wirtz and the other starting lineman? All those guys have gotten better. And that's what happens when you've got Division I guys around you, like Landon Livingston and DJ Allen, who's going to Rutgers, Landon, of course, going to West Virginia. Those guys just pull everybody up with them. That whole line has gotten better, and that's why we see the numbers in their rushing attack. So not matching up well with them is understandable. Everybody else they've handled on their schedule, and I think Josh Gerber, if you pressed me for Coach of the Year, it'd be hard not to say Josh Gerber. I mean, certainly Jared Sauter's in the mix. Certainly Kyle Lindsey is in the mix. Of course, you can't dismiss Kurt Tittman at Snyder and Doug Dinan at Carroll. Todd Mason, who was our coach of the year a few years ago from Eastside. There's a lot of guys, and this will flesh itself out. But Josh Gerber, for my money, is got to be right there at the top of the conversation because of the expectations, because of the fact that they're not senior laden, and they don't have a bunch of D1 guys on their team. They're just going out and playing good physical football, controlling the line of scrimmage, dictating tempo with a reliable ground game, and playing good physical fundamental defense. So hats off to the Knights. That being said, Concordia can win this game. They play in the SAC. They're feeling good about themselves for the first time in a long time after an impressive win a week ago. It's all going to be about that start. I think if they can get a score early, maybe a kick return or a block punt or something, hit a big play in the passing game and somehow find themselves up 7-0, 14-7 in the second quarter, then I think this could be a 4-quarter game. Conversely, if Norwell dictates tempo and they're up 14-21-0 in the second quarter, it could get ugly fast.
Yeah, they may have beat a winless team, but at least they put more points than anybody else had on Northwestern.
Yep.
On to 2A, East Side at Central Noble. That was the matchup everybody was looking for in the regular season, and East Side handled them. But this time, it's at Central Noble. Does that make much of a difference? The Swami says East Side by 27.
Well, I do think it makes a difference. And I got the helmets out again. I love this one. This is my favorite one. I mean,
That's a good one.
This Coach Mason at Eastside set the bar so high. I mean, this thing looks like it's brand new. Like I told you, I'm half convinced Laban Davis lost his helmet midseason, and he's been looking for it ever since. So thank you, Laban, for sharing this with GameNight. And then, of course, we talked about the Central Noble helmet from Coach Kilgore. I like this. Eastside's playing at a different level. Do I think it's 42-0? No, but I do think it's 4 scores at least. I think Eastside's, just has too much talent. Again, playing on grass, this could keep the game closer. Central Noble wants to pound the ball with Will Hoover. He's got great hair. He's a big beast. If they can run the ball and shorten the game, Central Noble, the Cougars, definitely could hang around. On the other side, though, you got Dax Holman, you got Laban Davis, the Wallace kid. You've got enough playmakers offensively. I think it's going to be hard for Central Noble to key on all those guys and keep Eastside out of the end zone. But weather could play a huge factor in this, field conditions for sure. Wouldn't be surprised if the folks up in Albion had the fire department go over there and unload the hoses and add another 4 or 5 inches of water. Of course, I'm just kidding. That's a joke, everybody. I don't want anybody calling their city council people and complaining. But the point is, the field conditions definitely could play a part, Jeff. And I do think Eastside's at least 3 or 4 scores better. And, now you start wondering, okay, 2 things involved here. You already beat this team badly, right? These are high school kids. You already pummeled them badly. And 2, you got a big one next week, the look ahead, right, to Bishop Luers. Eastside gave Luers all it wanted last year en route to the Knights state championship appearance. They want this game. They want this rematch. So you wonder about, the psyche of 16, 17, 18-year-old kids and those 2 realities. You already punished this team once, and you're looking ahead to the matchup next week against Bishop Luers. Does that factor in? It might. And I don't think it does. But if we get score updates in the third quarter and Central Noble's, only down 14-7 or something, then you'll have to wonder if that played a part.
Yeah, looking at it last year, that was a big game, 56-59. Just seemed like whoever had the ball last was going to win.
Yep.
And that's a good transition to Bishop Luers. They're traveling to Prairie Heights. Luers 9-1, Prairie Heights 4-6. Luers number 2 in the AP, number 1 in the coaches poll. You got the Knights by 44. I will concur with that, Casey. What I want to know is, how is Sir Hale doing? That news, when I heard that he went out with an injury, that was heartbreaking to me. Is he okay?
Yeah, he's going to be fine, I think, for the stretch run, but it's my understanding they're going to hold him out of this game. Okay. They might be missing a couple offensive linemen, too, two pretty high profile guys. So we're probably going to see a couple young kids fill in those spots, and they still might be missing one or two other key players too. So they're going to be a little bit shorthanded. Are the Bishop Luers Knights in terms of personnel? But again, Prairie Heights, let's be honest, they don't play in the schedule that Bishop Luers plays. They're 4-6. Bishop Luers is 9-1, one of the top conferences in the state, playing 4A and 5A and 6A heavyweights. So I think Luers almost could go in literally with their backups and still win this game. That's not to disparage Prairie Heights by any means. I just think that this attests to the talent disparity between the two programs right now. And so I think Luers knows that they can probably go in, take care of business, and try to keep their other guys healthy. I mean, Carson Clark, Brody Glenn, fellas like that, Devon Doughty on defense. Hogue last week had a nice game running the ball in place of Sir Hale. They want to make sure those guys, they don't get dinged up any more than they already are. So I expect Luers to get a big lead early and then shut things down after intermission. Will weather play a huge factor in this game? I don't think so. I think they'll be able to have guys open in space, and Carson Clark will get some decent numbers early on, and then they'll just salt it away again in the third quarter.
Yeah, you hate to look ahead, but both Eastside and Bishop Luers have been so dominant. Looks like they could match up for a sectional title, and Bishop Luers most likely would host that one. You said you're thinking the field would be ready for them to host. The winner of that one could end up playing that tough Eastbrook squad for a regional. So interesting stuff down the pipeline, Casey.
Yeah, no, 2A, it actually, there'll be some formidable opponents. I mean, if we're just talking about Bishop Luers, potentially Eastside, Eastbrook, Andrean, and then of course the southern half of the state. I mean, it's not necessarily a cakewalk. I do still think they're the favorite to end up 2A champs. But a lot of things can happen between now and Thanksgiving weekend. And one of those things is overall health of a team. And if you lose two or three key guys, that'll change things. You got to find a way to make sure Carson Clark isn't taking unnecessary hits, especially in this game against Prairie Heights. Be real smart about what you're doing and just execute and go out and take care of business, put the game on ice early, and then rest your starters in the second half.
Yeah, and Carson Clark was phenomenal again last week, completing 10 of 12 passes. You remember in week 8 when he completed 16 of 16.
Yeah, Carson's had a great year. He had the one hiccup game, of course, against Snyder, which you got to give a lot of credit to the Panthers and their defensive approach. And then, weather, it always plays a part this time of year too. And so the numbers go down a little bit. It's understandable. But again, I think the talent disparity is such that weather is not going to matter, should not matter. I think Bishop Luers wins this game pretty easily.
All right, we're going to move on to 1A. Monroe Central undefeated at South Adams. You like Monroe Central by 6, but you said South Adams, they could sting them.
I'll be honest with you. If this game, I asked Coach Grant Mosier at South Adams, why aren't you playing this at Bluffton on their artificial surface? And it sounds like they put the request in too late, and their nemesis, Adams Central, now might be playing at Bluffton. Then when I asked Michael Mosier over at Adams Central, well, are you or are you not? He said they probably wouldn't make up their mind till Friday. So it kind of feels like, well, wait a second. If, either take it and then let your ACAC rival South Adams take it if you decide to play at home. I know Adams Central wants to play their game, and the next game on the schedule, I'm looking ahead a little bit here. They want to play this game against Southwood at home for their fans, but by the same token, it's an important game, and they want to make sure their field's in proper condition too. So sounds like one of those two teams is going to be playing. It sounds like Adams Central will either be playing at Bluffton or they won't. It looks like South Adams kind of missed their window to put that request in. So if it was on turf, I would be taking the Starfires to win this game. Remember, this game, I believe, was just 7-0 at halftime when they met earlier this year. Monroe Central won 24-0. Did they over the South Adams Starfires? And that 7 points came on like a 92-yard interception return from Monroe Central. So South Adams was going in to score. The young quarterback, Owen Warner, throws a pick six, goes the other direction. One thing to consider here, it's my understanding, senior Aiden Warner, who was on our PT 40, really, really good receiver, started out as a quarterback, got hurt early in the season. He should be the guy behind center tonight for South Adams. Now, I don't think he's real mobile yet in terms of running the ball, but he can pass it. And I think Owen Warner, my understanding, is a distant cousin to Aiden Warner, the sophomore. He's been taking snaps at quarterback. He's going to go to receiver, and he might be even better at receiver. So exciting subplot there. You just hope Mother Nature cooperates and South Adams can throw it as much as they want to. Again, on a dry track, certainly without rain, I'm taking South Adams to avenge that regular season loss. And then when you jump down, Jeff, to the other sectional 44 1A game, Southwood 5-5 at Adams Central 9-1. Remember, Southwood ended Adams Central's season a year ago, 28-14. And I think that was a bit of surprise for all of us. I think most of us had Adams Central winning that game. So this is a team that they've circled on their schedule potentially as in a sectional rematch to try to avenge last year's loss. And Adams Central, I think, is the best team for sure in the northern half of the state in Class 1A. Ton of seniors, really fast on defense, hard to defend because they got 4 or 5 guys that they can get the ball to. Somewhat like Leo, but with a little bit more of a true passing attack. And so I think Adams Central wins this game pretty easily, avenges that 14-point loss. I think the Flying Jets win by 35.
Well, Casey, that's going to do it for week number 11. We promise that we'll have shorter episodes in the weeks to come, but a lot going on here in week number 11. So,
Jeff, we can't promise that. You went to lunch. That lunch was supposed to be a 45-minute lunch with Joe Walburn. Ended up being over 2 hours, right? We can't help but talk high school football.
And
we do a show about tennis. I promise you it won't be this long.
JETS, Jets, like that old helmet there. So, well, enjoy week number 11, everybody. We got plenty of games that Summit City Sports will be covering. Like I said, I'll be at the Mississinawa and New Haven game. All the games can be watched on ihsaatv.org. And you can find those games by going to Summit City Sports live video, and then it'll take you over to their platform. So thanks for joining us. Once again, I'm Jeff Mahoney, and that is Casey O'Boyle.
Happy Halloween, everybody.